Hi, everybody in 1st through 4th grade. And we have another Wednesday computer class today. And we are going to be talking about that website that we visited last week called Wixie. Um, for some of you, it was the first time that we've ever gone to that site or something like it. But for a lot of you, it is something that we are somewhat used to from when we used Pixie, a very similar program in class. Now, if you did not watch my video from last week, that talked about the part one or basics of logging in, getting to Wixie first, logging in, and using that program. And if you did not watch it yet or do that last week, I would really recommend that you do that first because we might go and talk about some things today that you should already know. All right, so we know to get to Wixie, we have to go to a certain link or website. It is possible to type that in, and if you wanted to type it in, it's wey.wixie.com. That's a specific site that Wixie has set up just for our school. You could also go to wixie.com, and it could also take you to the same place. Or if you're used to using Weymouth Border Portal, I'm going to go down and go through the link that way, and it's under the Music, Phys Ed, Art, and Health section, Wixie, right here, and that takes us to that login. And we know that we're signing in with Google, so whatever username and password you use to sign into a Chromebook, to sign into a Google account, it's going to be the same login for Wixie. Okay, you don't have to remember anything different. And so I'm going to sign into mine, and you can go back and forth with this video and use Wixie a little bit at a time. Pause it and go back. You can watch the whole video and then try it. But essentially, what we're going to do today is look at a few other features that we may not have seen before, or different tools that we can use. And that's for this week. I planned on spending about a whole month, 4 weeks on Wixie, where the first two classes are just really tutorials on how to use the different tools, different features that Wixie has. Then starting next week, and for 2 classes, we're going to actually go about making a project. So from last week and from today, we're not looking to have one specific finished project, but you certainly can be creative and make anything that you would like. Along with what we learned today, you can go on Wixie anytime. It's something that I know my own children in my house, they like to do just for fun. Sometimes in the same way that they would draw a picture or color a picture on paper, they like to go into Wixie and create things, and you can do that anytime. Now, I signed in and I'm on the main Wixie page that has my projects. What we're going to look at today is actually something where you don't start with a blank project, but you start with something called a template. And that word template is used in a lot of different programs and some other things in life to basically mean the basic structure of something, or the basics of how something looks already set up for you to then go fill in, customize, or make your own. So in these folders over here, and there's a couple of others that have a few other things that we're not going to see today, but there is one called templates. And in this one called templates, there's tons of different subjects, and each one has many, many templates, which are ready-made things, some of which you might find interesting, some of which me or another teacher may decide to use for class. Now, if you follow the order that I'm going, I went to templates, and then I'm going to go to social studies. And in social studies, I'm just going to click on this very first one that says civics. And in civics, the first template in order is called color the flag. And we're going to open that up, give it a click, and open it up in your account to see a little bit of different features, different things we can do with Wixie today. Now you'll see that that already put in a nice image of the flag with a title at the top, but we could go and we could customize it to make it what we want. So that's the way a template is set up. Now we're going to see how to, oh, and I'm sorry, one more point is that for each of the templates, it gives you a little instructions list. And if myself or another teacher decided to make a template for you and have you use it, we could also type specific instructions over there. We're not necessarily going to follow these exactly today, but we just want to get an idea of how these templates work. Now, back over to our tools, which we took a look at last week, and we used a few. We're going to see 2 more new ones today, maybe 3. that are very, very useful. And the first of them is going to be a fill bucket. See this paint can? Lots of programs that have to do with painting, colors, things like that have a fill tool, and it's usually some type of icon of a paint can. So I'm going to give it a click. Now, it gives me my color choices, which we saw last week. It gives me some of the main colors right here first. This eyedropper tool is something else that maybe we'll take a look at in the future, and then I could click the arrow to get to really any shade of any color that I would like. And it also gives me the option of if I want to fill it with a solid color or gradient patterns or a few other patterns that you can see here, and they're pretty self-explanatory. Most of them are going to be based on the color that you pick. There are a few rainbow ones at the bottom that really don't pay any attention to that color and just do a rainbow type pattern. So let's see how a few of them work. Now, to show how it works, I'm actually going to do something else first. Let's imagine that I wanted to color in this first stripe red. And if you think of doing that the way that maybe you would naturally or you're used to with a paintbrush, and I pick the color red, it's going to be extremely hard to fill in that rectangle or stripe of red perfectly. I'm trying to do it just a little bit here, and I already went way out of the lines, right? It's a little difficult to do. I'm going to use my magical undo button, which we talked about before. And now, to show the difference, here's how the paint bucket works. So I click the paint bucket. It's already on red since that's the last color I picked. And now I go up to that same rectangle or stripe. I put my paint bucket inside of there. And I know it's a very small detail, but do you see how there's a little splash of paint coming out of the paint bucket? It's filled in black. You want to look at that tip of that. Now, in this stripe, I can fit the whole paint bucket in there. And so if I click right now, that's going to all turn red instantly in one click because it's filling that shape up to where it touches a border, like how the black line is a border around that. I mentioned about that little tip because sometimes you get to a very small shape like this star. And some kids think, okay, should I try to center my paint bucket in there or get any part of my paint bucket in there? And let's see what happens. If I try to fill in a few stars yellow, and I go and I put my paint bucket in about the center of this star. This is where that little tip on the paint that's splashing out becomes really important. Because if I put my paint bucket on the centered on the star and click, that's going to not fill it in. And I actually got it right on the line of the star, so it filled it in a way I didn't want. What I want to do is I want to put that point or tip of that splash of paint that's coming out right where I want to color. And if I put that right in the center of the star, now it will fill in yellow. And I could go and fill in a few more. There are a lot because there's 50 stars, so this would take me a little while to do for the tutorial, and I want to make the video as short as possible. You are certainly welcome to fill them all in if you would like, but that'll give you a little practice making sure you really get the specific point that you need to get for that fill tool in small areas. And then just undo if you make any mistakes. Now, to take a look just very quickly at what some of those other patterns do, I know that the American flag has specific colors, but let's just say I picked this green right now. It's on a solid color, just like I filled in the red, but if I pick one of these gradients, a gradient is where it blends or fades from one color to another. So now if I click here, you can see that it didn't just put in a solid green, it faded, and pretty much in the same direction because it showed in this preview that it was faded from a little grayish white on the left all the way to the dark green on the right. Same thing here. If I wanted to do a fade or gradient up and down, I could pick that one. If I wanted to go outwards like a circle or inwards like a circle, I could pick one of those. You can see, and it's pretty self-explanatory, all of those other different patterns and what they do. And this is, I know it's an American flag, but it's great in that it gives us all these different sections that you can go and try that out and try out using the fill tool, checking out some of the different patterns, practicing using it to fill things in, right? And there's an example of one of those rainbow designs, rainbow patterns. All right, so that fill tool is going to be really, really useful, especially with the next tool that we're going to look at in just a sec. Now, for those of you who used Wixie with me before, you should know this, but for everyone, we see one page here. And when we practiced last week, we focused on just one page. One really cool thing about Wixie or Wixie is that you can have multiple pages, and in that way, you could make a booklet or a story, a comic strip, something with multiple pages that you could make into one project. So if I go and look, see this icon at the top that says story? If I click that, it's going to show all of the pages that I have. Right now, I started with that template for color the flag, and it's just one. But I can add a page, right? And if I click that plus sign right there with page underneath of it, I can add a blank page. There's also some other things I can do. We'll take a look at it in a second. But here's that blank page. Although right now it's just showing me a grid or the start of a grid of all the pages that I have. If I wanted to go and do anything on this page, I would have to go over here and click on this edit button. And now here's my blank page. You see how the flag disappeared, but it's actually not gone. It's not deleted or erased or disappearing. It's just back a page because right now I'm working on page 2. See these arrows up here at the top? You can use those to go through your different pages, and you can see I clicked left to go back, and that flag that I had is right there back, or I could go forward to my blank page. I'm going to go to the storyboard view again, to see my grid to show some other things I could do. Right in the last example, I used the new page button right here. But that's not the only way that I could have multiple pages. Let's say I made a background, and I wanted my background to appear on a couple different pages, and then change the words, the text, or the characters, or something else about it. What I could do is I could copy and paste pages. Now, if I go and click on the color the flag page that I already had, and then I do a right click, or that would be a Alt button click on our Chromebooks, I could go and I can duplicate that page. I could make another one so that I could possibly make a background for a story and have it be on multiple pages and reuse it instead of having to make that over and over and over, and then just go change things on each page. And in that way, I could make something like a comic strip or a story really quickly and simply. All right, so we are going to go back onto this blank page that we made, and we're just going to look at one or two more tools for today. So on my blank page, I need to go to Edit again. And another tool that we have here that we didn't look at last week is this Shape tool. And it's exactly what you would imagine. If I click on my Shape tool, I can go and I can make different shapes of any size or dimensions or color that I want. So I'm going to do that and just show a couple different features or examples of things with this Shape tool. So first, it has basic shapes: line, circle, triangle, and square. And if I just use this line, I click and hold and drag, and it just made a straight line for me. Now, do you see this slider with width? That is going to change the thickness of the lines for any of my shapes. With this one, just a plain line, or with the line around my other shapes here. Let's get off of green and use a different color, maybe orange, and let's do a really skinny one by moving that slider down. And I'm going to do a skinny line here. And let's see what it would look like if it's a really thick line. So here I'll do one last line. And it's really thick because I moved that slider around to adjust the line thickness. Now, that's on a single line, which really only has one line, but then on the other shapes like a circle, there's a line for the outline, and then there's also a fill on the inside. And let's see a little bit about the difference there. So with this circle tool, I moved my slider from my width about back to the middle, and I just drew a circle that has an orange line on the outside. Now, maybe I want that, and maybe I want to do some things to it later, but what if I wanted that entire shape to be all the same color? See down here under the options, let's see what a couple of those do. If I wanted that whole entire circle to be orange, I could click on this first option right here and see how it's shaded or highlighted now. And now when I draw my circle, it doesn't just show the outline and then nothing in the middle, it's all filled in, right? The second option right here with the dotted line, that's going to give us, instead of a solid line outline, a dotted line outline. And then last but not least, you know what, a circle was not the best example to use for that. Let's use my square and let's change it to purple and show how instead of just having it be straight where the lines are even at the top and bottom, left and right. Now, if I turn my mouse a little bit or turn on the trackpad as I'm making that shape, I can rotate that shape to have it be at whatever angle I would like. So those are a couple different things you can do, and I can turn those off if I don't need them anymore. Also, see this little arrow right here? That's going to show us that there's also more shapes that we didn't show yet, we didn't see yet. And for one last example, let's see how a couple of these things come together and use this arrow shape right here. And with that arrow shape, I'm going to do a color I haven't used yet. Let's go to a blue. And I'm going to make my arrow. I want it with a thin outline. So maybe about an 8 right there. I don't want any of these selected because I don't want it filled in. I just want it to be a thin blue line for an arrow. And now let's look at just a little bit of how the fill tool combines with that to do some interesting things. See how I said before that with that fill tool, the fill will fill in any color until it hits a border of another color or a line. So if I go back to my fill tool now, and I pick a, let's say, yellow color at first, let's make a few predictions. If I go right here, where it's white, right here, inside of my arrow, my blue arrow, and I give it a click, is it going to fill in that whole blue arrow? Is it going to fill in most of that blue arrow, part of that blue arrow? And before I do that, I better change my pattern here or else it's not going to do what I wanted. But in any case, if I fill in right here, well, let's watch what happens. Do you see how it just filled in a section of that arrow, the white right here, right? Because inside of these blue lines, and then this orange line right here was all white. And so it filled in everything until it hit another color. Now that was when I tapped on white. Let's try a different color. Let's try a red this time. Let's make another prediction. What is going to happen if I tap right here where this orange is? Over here it was white where I tapped. And a lot of times when we first use the fill tool, we're filling in a white space. But here it's orange. Think in your head what's going to happen. I'll go and click it, and you see that it filled in that orange, but it stopped where the blue line was, and it also stopped on the border out here where there was the white. And one last example, let's pick a pink. Now, let's say I click right here in this white space. What's that going to fill in? Well, trace it with your eyes and see it's going to fill in everything white all along this entire border, this little sliver here. It's going to go up through this crack right here, or this gap rather, in the line for this orange circle that had the dotted line. And it's going to go all over here and fill in everything that's white until it touches another line or color. So ready, click, and it filled that in exactly as I thought. And here I have a nice work of art that we could probably put in a museum or sell for a lot of money. But in any case, that is the basic things that I wanted to show you guys for this week for a few advanced features. Now, there's one other one, and I'm going to just add it to this page, and then that's going to pretty much wrap up this week. And this one other one is going to be something that we saw before about adding in stickers. Now, when we used Pixie, for those who used Pixie in computer class before, when we go to image right here, and you see the tab up at the top that has stickers, that's what we are used to, right? Because that's basically what we saw when we used Pixie, are these folders full of stickers. Well, in Wixie, it actually gives us a little bit more, where it gives us, see this other tab called Pix for Learning, where it can go and it can find hundreds and hundreds more pictures that you can actually go and add in that tab, right? So if I go in there, these aren't usually stickers. These are more photographs, drawings, clip art images, but they're usually more of a rectangular shape. So if I go in there and go into the animals section, it gives me a ton of images of animals. And here's some more folders. Here's bats. Oh, I love bats. And here's a nice picture of a bat. Oh, this one's cute. That I can add to my Pixie drawing, and I can move it around and use those tools just like we talked about last week to adjust the size and the position and the rotation, if I want to, of that bat. And last but not least, I'm not going to do it, but you can experiment with it yourself if you want. See, there's a camera tab as well. And with that camera tab, you could possibly use your Chromebook to take a webcam image where you could take a picture of yourself or something in your house. You will have to allow it, just like you do with a Google Meet, where you have to allow Wixie to use your camera. But if you go to this camera tab, you could also import a picture from your webcam. I'm not going to do it for an example because nobody wants to see Mr. Henderson's face on the webcam. That's okay. We'll leave that off for today. All right, so that was just one last little more advanced use or advanced detail of using Wixie. Is that every single thing in the world that Wixie can do? No. There are some other things. There are some things that we could look at in the future, but that gives us a really good basis to go and make a nice project next week. All right, so that's all for today. I hope you enjoy it. Make something really cool, make something that you like, make something interesting, and then next week we're going to start making something that will turn into a finished project together. All right, everybody, have fun. If you have any questions, you can email me or comment in Google Classroom, and I will see you next week.